what do you think is happening after a year of war in Ukraine, and now that many experts in America are actually saying, including Jeffrey Sachs, is saying that this whole war is a creation of the United States of America. Would you agree with that opinion? And do you think that this disagreement is causing basically a disruption in the G20 agreements?
After 1 year, we can arrive at this conclusion that the US itself, despite having, in my opinion, arguably provoked the conflict, nevertheless did not expect it. Or if it thought it was going to happen, let's not forget they had been talking about it in the run up to the special operation, they didn't think it would be a prolonged conflict. We can arrive at this conclusion because NATO has declared recently a so called war of attrition or race of logistics with Russia. What this means in practical terms is that the bloc was not ready to provide the military industrial components for arming Kiev indefinitely. Had they expected that, they would have retooled their military industrial complex well ahead of time to prepare for a prolonged conflict. The very fact that they haven't, and they've had to acknowledge these dynamics, suggests that they were caught off guard by the way that Russia responded. This leads to my observation that the US thought it could pressure Russia through Ukraine, as Russia has since claimed, into a never-ending series of unilateral concessions aimed at strategically neutralizing its rise as a multipolar great power. The larger grand strategic context is that this conflict is part of the US's efforts to retain its unipolar hegemony over international relations, which has been declining since the 2008 financial crisis and especially in recent years. Now, we can also say from the Russian perspective that Russia itself was a bit unprepared for a prolonged conflict. We know this because in terms of the on-the-ground success that Russia has had, it was not exactly what many observers, both friends and foes alike, had expected. This shows that had Russia expected a prolonged proxy war, it too would have prepared a lot more accordingly. But instead, President Putin, as we now know, was the only party to the Minsk Accords that seriously thought that these agreements would peacefully end the then Ukrainian civil war. We know that former German Chancellor Merkel, French President Hollande, and Ukrainian President Poroshenko have all since admitted over the past few months that they only used the agreements to buy time to rearm Kiev in advance of a final military solution of the civil war. Russia itself was not preparing for that, hence why we have the 1 year long conflict.